Are you wondering why your team feels stuck? Why it feels like they're not making any progress sprint after sprint, despite your effort as a Scrum Master to get them out of that rut? It is because your team is committing the 7 deadly sins. And in today's episode, I'm going to be sharing the 7 deadly sins the team commits that keeps them stuck in the rut. Now, let's get started with the very first one. Now, the very first sin that your team is committing is neglecting the basis of Agile. Many times, your team members refuse to attend sprint review. Sometimes your team might not even be having a sprint retrospective, and yet you expect your team to grow. Nah, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, and yet we're expecting a different result. There is a reason why these meetings exist. There's a reason why many of the frameworks would encourage you as a team to conduct those meetings. Now, let's take a look at those meetings and what their purpose is. Let's start with Daily Scrum. What's the purpose of Daily Scrum? It's a time for the team to meet together and inspect their progress towards the sprint goal. Now, what happens when your team is not having their Daily Scrum? They don't have a structured time to inspect their progress. They are not communicating to understand where they are. So what happens? The possibility of that missing their sprint goal is high because they are not communicating. And remember that it's a team. They're not working in silos. So everybody needs to be in sync. Everybody needs to understand what everybody's doing to push towards the finish line. Now, let's take a look at your backlog refinement. If you don't make up the time to refine future work, how are you going to plan for that future work? How are you going to know exactly what and when you can pull things in? How are you going to address the dependencies or the risk that might be attached to a requirement? That's the purpose of refinement. That's the time for you to break down work into smaller chunks. That's the time for you to add details. That's the time for you to estimate. But sometimes the teams are not doing this, and yet they want to magically achieve the objective. No, that is a sin. Now, let's take a look at another meeting, sprint review. It is shocking that some teams today are not having a sprint review. Now, what is a review? You're working in an agile way. With Agile, we break down work into smaller chunks. We work iteratively and incrementally. But no, you have chosen to do something differently as a team. You refuse to review. You refuse to meet with your stakeholders to share your increment, to share your progress. And then, yes, you want a miracle to happen. You want to magically achieve your goals. You want to be magically a high-performing team, but yet you're not putting in the work. It doesn't work that way. That is a sin for you to neglect the basis, for you not to be having this regular event because there is a purpose and there is a reason. Now, sprint retrospective, let's not even go there. That is one meeting that teams feel like, why are we even having this meeting? What is the purpose of this meeting? I'm busy. I have work to do. I don't want to attend. And people keep skipping retrospective. What is the purpose of retrospective? That is the time where we sit as a team to reflect on our previous sprint. How well did we do? What can we do better? What can we do differently? It doesn't matter the structure that it takes. That meeting is extremely important because it allows us the space, the time, and the opportunity to actually improve and grow as a team. But yet, many teams overlook this meeting. They think it's a waste of time, but yet they are wondering why they have so much problems. They are wondering why they feel stuck, why they're not making progress, because you are committing a sin. So stop neglecting the basics. Now, as a Scrum Master, it is your job to be able to motivate your teams to do the right thing, even if they don't want to do the right thing. It's your job to educate your organization to understand the importance of this basis. If they truly want to be an agile team, there are some fundamentals that they have got to do. So ensure that you follow up to ensure that they are doing the right thing at the right time. Now, another thing that many teams are found guilty of doing is overcommitting. I don't know whether there is a trophy that your team will get at the end of the day for overcommitting. Overcommitting does not show that you're working hard. And you've got to make your team understand that the fact that we pull in so much work does not make any difference. It doesn't make us better. It doesn't make us great. No, we are not measured by the amount of work we pull in. We are measured by the outcome of the work. What did we complete? It's not really what we committed to. What did we complete? What were we able to accomplish? Because that completed work, that increment is what matters to the customers. The customers don't care. Okay, at the end of this month, I decide to work on XYZ. Okay, it's the month end. What do you have for me? That is what matters. There is no trophy that your team is going to get. So it's important for you as a Scrum Master to coach your team. Speak to them, beg them if needed. Please stop overcommitting. It's a deadly sin. It kills the team progress. It kills our productivity. It kills our efficiency. They have got to stop it. Now, another sin that many team members and many teams are still committing today is inconsistent estimation. Now, I believe that estimation will always be an issue and a challenge to many teams. And I think it's just how people just have preconceived mindsets about estimation. First of all, estimation is an estimate, right? We are trying to understand the effort required. We're not trying to say, give us an exact. We're trying to say, how long do you think it would take? What's the effort required? How risky is this task? How complex is this task? That's what we're trying to get at, right? It's not rocket science. It's not magic. And so as a team, it's important for us to come together and understand the way we want to estimate what works for us. What is that reference story that we have to be able to say, hey, if this is the type of work we're doing, this is how we're going to estimate it. Estimates are for the team. It's the way that we plan how much work we can commit to so that we can ensure that we get it complete. It's not rocket science. And one of the deadliest things the teams commit today is being so inconsistent in the way they estimate. And your team needs to realize that it's not about them. It's about the organization. We work for an organization and we've got to be responsible. These organizations have deadlines. They have milestones that they're trying to accomplish, and they need our help. They need the products that we're working on. They need what we're building to be able to sell to their target audience. They need to remain competitive. Otherwise, that organization is going to go bankrupt. At the end of the day, we all will not have jobs. So there's a ripple effect of the things that we do. And when we're so inconsistent in the way we estimate, it's so difficult for your organizations to be able to plan releases. So it's a sin for us to be so inconsistent and not even find ways to improve the way we estimate, thereby affecting the bottom line of the organizations that we work for. That is a sin. We've got to stop it. As a Scrum Master, please teach your teams how to estimate. Let every member of that team understand and be on the same page so that we can improve the way we work, so that we can improve in terms of things that we commit to and in terms of the things that we get to complete. Okay? Another deadly sin that many teams are still committing today is, despite the fact that they are an Agile team, they're still working in silos. You cannot be working in silo and you are a part of a team, not to talk more of an Agile team. In an Agile team, we are supposed to be cross-functional. We are supposed to have all the skill sets required to deliver the product that has been assigned to us. So we can't afford to work in silos. And yes, I get it. All of us have skill sets, so we have the developers on the team. We have the QA on the team. We have the UI and the UX, if that's a development team. And if you're a different type of team, you have all of your skill sets, but you can't work in silos. If I have to work on a story and it requires multiple hands to get on it, we've got to work as a team. We all have to have an understanding of the effort required so that we can estimate the work together. It's not a silo work. We have to work together. We are a team. We are infused into one another. It's important that we got to change our mindset. And that's a sin that still hunts us down till today. Working as a silo, as a developer, I'm focused on developing and then I throw it over to QA. And worse off, I throw it at the QA 2 days before the sprint is over. And then we don't accomplish our sprint goal. And you're like, oh, it's QA's fault. How is that QA's fault? You got it 2 days before the sprint end. How did you think that the QA will magically get things done? That's not how it works. Remember, we win as a team and we fail as a team. It's a collective effort. You've got to work together. And that is a deadly sin that is killing your team and keeping you in that rut. So you've got to change. You've got to work with your team. Let them have that collective mindset. Let it be a we discussion. How do we get this job done? How do we get this task to the finish line? That is how teams talk. Now, you can't tell me that you are a development team, and in today's time and age, you are still doing manual testing. No, that is a sin. And as a Scrum Master, you can't tell me that you are supporting a team that is heavily testing manually and nobody's having the conversation of automating their testing. No wonder we're not completing tasks. Because many times we always have more developers than QA in a team. And one of the reasons that prevents us from getting to the finish line is because the QAs are actually heavily involved in manual testing. And so it's almost impossible for them to get work done or work completed. And that's the more reason why we have to automate many of these things that we're doing so that it's easier for us to complete the work. It's easier for us to test the quality of what we've built and so that we can move it to the finish line. Lack of automation is a deadly sin. You can't afford to still be testing manually. It's 2023. Somebody has got to have this conversation. And if your team members are not going to have this conversation, Scrum Master, it's high time you have this conversation. Talk to your team. Let them know, what can we do differently? What tools can we use to help us automate the way we test? Because clearly, you would have noticed that that is an issue with your team. You would have noticed that come rain, come shine, we're not finishing work. And when we try to trace it and map out the root cause, it always falls down to QA not completing their task. All of the stories are still in QA. So what can we do about it? How can we step up our game? Automation is the key. And if you're not automating today, you are committing a deadly sin. Now, another sin that many of these teams are still committing today is avoiding difficult conversations. When you work as a team, at some point in time, conflict will happen. And it's important that we don't avoid this conflict. And as a Scrum Master, you have a huge role to play. Make sure that you're heavily involved with your team. Understand, the silent conversations that's going on in your team. Understand, the aggression that might be silently going on in your team. Make sure that everyone is cordial. Make sure that when people don't agree, they are still able to find that 2% truth that they can agree on. Make sure that everyone on your team is respected. Everybody's opinion is valid. Make sure that you don't have a team member who is lording over someone else on that team. It is important. Don't avoid these conversations if they are happening, because they would lead to low morale. They would lead to lack of productivity. And at the end of the day, you guys are not going to achieve your results. So it is a deadly sin for you to avoid difficult conversations, for you to avoid conversations just because they look difficult. And that's what makes us agile. Having these conversations, being transparent. You've got to have these conversations. The success of your team is your success as a Scrum Master. So it is important that you are having these conversations, that your team is in harmony. Have, happy hours. Even if you're working remotely, you can remotely have these events where people gather, where they get to know each other on a personal level. It's important. It helps the team work closely together, and it helps break down all of this silent war or cold war that may be happening in your team. Now, the final deadly sin on my list today is fear of failure. Your team members should not be so afraid of failing that they hardly get things done. You need to build an environment where it's okay for us to make mistakes. That's why we're agile. We're going to learn, we're going to grow, right? So I encourage them to test things out. If you have an idea, let's test it out. Let's work it out. Let's see if it's going to work and serve us. And if we don't like it, we're going to change it. If it does not serve us well, we're going to change it. And if you are in an environment where your team members are afraid of leadership or management because they're breathing down their neck, they're micromanaging them, you do what you can for your team to protect them. You do what you can to bring up the morale of your team and motivate them to still work in that environment if you believe that you cannot speak to management, or if you believe that you cannot convince them to change that culture. There are still things you can do. You can focus on your team and work with them in such a way that they are still able to create buffers that allows them to solve for problems that they may have, for them to solve for some of those mistakes that they may have. Don't create such a tight schedule that there is little allowance for them to be able to breathe, just in case maybe something doesn't get done. And don't also break down their neck as a scrum master where you are policing them up and down. Oh, you said this story was a 2-pointer. You said it would get done in 3 days. It's the 3rd day. Why is it not done? Rather than policing them, ask from a different perspective. Is there any problem that you're facing? Is there any way we can help you get this work done? That way, you will be able to get the truth out of that team member. You'll be able to get to the root cause of why that story is delayed. Your conversations and the manner in which you have those conversations matter. And if you are not having the right conversations, if you're not using the right tactic, then you are committing a deadly sin that breeds fear into your team members. So I hope that as a Scrum Master, if you're committing any of these deadly sins, you now know that it's time for you to stop them and make the corrective steps to get your team back on track. Thank you so much for spending another time with me on today's episode. And if you enjoyed today's episode, do not forget to like, do not forget to subscribe, and do not forget to share with your friends. Thank you very much, and I cannot wait to catch you on my next episode. Bye.